Welcome to the Project Hummingbird House podcast, Ep.2. Today we are joined by Côté, a late diagnosed non-binary autistic person, university student, and disability advocate. They have experience working with an autism nonprofit and hope to become an occupational therapist in a few years' time. So, I decided that this podcast should be a conversation kind of bridging the two. I've noticed there's two factions of people. There's the parents, which are usually strong, mama bears, daddy bears, oh my god, back away from my kid. And then there's the neurodiversity movement. And both of them are pointing the fingers at each other. And they're either pointing it at the ABA therapists or pointing it at each other. And I have this hypothesis that the prompt reliance and blind compliance is not actually a cause from prolonged ABA therapy, but I think it's actually a nonverbal atypical thing. I think it's always been there, and that ABA exacerbates that.
Interesting. Yeah.
And the reason why I think that is because I've noticed everybody has an inner dialogue. So, for example, if a stranger came up to you and said, take off your clothes right now, you would think to yourself, you're not my mom. You're not my therapist. You're not my doctor. No.
Yeah.
But a lot of nonverbals don't have that dialogue. And why don't they have it? Well, in a neurotypical universe, parents build that. They say, good touch, bad touch, stranger danger, whatever. They build that dialogue over time. Yeah. Atypicals, we've kind of forgotten to do that.
Yeah.
With the atypical universe, we're so worried about life skills, about making food, about brushing your teeth, about politeness, about social norms. We're so consumed with all of these other things that we have kind of forgotten to build defenses against predators. And so I think that is a natural consequence of seeing the world through an atypical point of view than necessarily from prolonged ABA exposure.
Okay.
Because a lot of people say, well, access to AAC tools, which I agree. Communication tools, yes. However, how do you use the communication tools? ABA would facilitate that. And without it, I could give my son, he has ProLoco to Go, which is a fabulous program.
Yeah.
PECS, a fabulous way to communicate. But when we first started, he's like, what's this and why am I using it?
Right.
Mom, you already know what I want. Why are you making me give you a picture?
Yeah.
And I'm like, son, because someday I am not going to be here and somebody else is going to need to know what you want or what you need or how you feel. Or if you want to say my favorite color is. And so even if we have all these access to augmentative communication skills, teaching them how to utilize that so that we can facilitate autonomy and independence should be our goal. But I think the consequence of using ABA would be prompt reliance and blind compliance, which I don't think we can just brush that aside. I think that's a problem, a big problem, because what it makes an autistic is a predator's wet dream. A predator's going to come by and be like, oh, you got blind compliance and you can't say what I've done?
Right.
You are the perfect victim. So what do we do? And so I've been trying to talk to as many autistics with as many different perspectives as humanly possible, because I found that the neurodiversity group, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. Blind compliance is a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, should we put this on the shoulders of ABA or should we put this on the shoulders of the parents going, yo, don't ignore this. Just like you don't ignore social skills. You don't ignore hygiene skills, life skills. Don't ignore this problem because it makes your kid 5 times more likely to be somebody's victim.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what you think of that.
Yeah, it's definitely I completely agree that it's an issue, huge issue. And it's really hard to pin it down to one cause. I think I think you could definitely be right that it kind of getting left behind, those kind of defenses, could definitely contribute. I think ABA is, it's hard to like define it as one thing, and it's hard to say, like, there's people on both sides. There's the people that are like, ABA is like completely evil and should never be used, and it's like always the worst possible thing. And then there's people on the other side that think that ABA is like
The gold
the
standard.
gold standard, and can do no wrong. Like, there's nothing that we need to challenge within it. And I think the answer lies somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I think it really depends. A lot of it depends on the therapist and on the therapy organization and what their goals are, and if they're open to collaborating with, having dialogue with autistic people and parents, and rather than just kind of imposing what they think the standard should be. I don't know.
You're not even wrong. I think the biggest problem is with, so first of all, there's the terminology nonverbal versus non-speaking.
Yeah.
And I understand even that. I understand that perspective because it's not so much a politically correct statement as it is just a proper definition. So
Right,
I would define nonverbal. If you can communicate with a pro loco, you're no longer nonverbal. You're just non-speaking.
yeah.
I agree with that definition.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, for example, with my son is he has that blank face.
Okay.
So you can't even pick up nonverbal cues from him. Like if you take him outside for a walk, you have to remind him to drink water or he'll overheat.
Yeah.
But he is so into the walk that even he won't say, oh yeah, I'm thirsty. He'll actually forget and he'll die of heat stroke before he's done the walk.
Yeah.
And so the problem is, I think, with an atypical, a therapist or a parent, everything we say is going to be speculation.
Right.
When it comes to nonverbal autistics, everything is speculation, and we can't use anecdotal experiences from just one atypical because just like neurotypicals, everybody's an individual.
Yeah.
And so the mode that we use to help one may very well completely not work for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's important. I've noticed that nobody has defined which type of ABA they're talking about, the Hannon model or the Denver model.
Mm-hmm.
They've actually blurred both together. So I don't know if you know that there's two different models of ABA.
I'm like slightly familiar, but I'm not super versed in it.
So ABA, the original root of ABA was actually from somebody who assumed that everybody that is atypical is a robot and can be programmed.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that hypothesis is incorrect. You feel. You want things. You desire. You have autonomy. It's just not an obvious thing.
Yeah.
And so the Denver model would assume that if they're looking you in the eyes, they're paying attention because that's a social norm. Whereas the Hannon model goes, whoa, 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 whoa. If they're looking you in the eyes and they're getting too much visual feedback, then any instruction like put on your shoes is going to be lost because their brain's going to go too much, too much, too much, overload, overload, overload. So they're never going to put on their shoes. So instead of focusing on looking you in the eyes as listening, let's ignore that. Let's take the sensory sensitivities and the processing capacities of the brain. Let's set that aside and instead say put on your shoes without them needing to give you a look.
Yeah.
And both of those types have been blurred together. So the ABA that says look you in the eyes, that's the Denver model.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know, because yeah, it definitely has been blurred together as one thing. And I've seen like distinction between different therapists and different approaches, and I didn't realize fully that that was actually two separate kind of approaches.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's two different types of therapies. So every autistic out there knows Autism Speaks.
Yes.
And most autistics that have any two brain cells to rub together goes, Autism Speaks sucks.
Yeah.
They use the Denver model.
Mm-hmm.
Most ABA practices in Canada use the Hannon model. But in America, they use both of them interchangeably.
Yeah.
And so there is no distinction between either.
Okay. Yeah.
I am more preferable to the Hannon model, because the Hannon model says the parents spend the most time with the child, which means our prerogative is to teach the parents how to do ABA instead of the parents drop the kid off and we do the ABA.
Yeah.
So the Hannon model says, no, parents, we're not raising your kid for you. You're going to do this with us. The Denver model says, drop off your kids and we'll fix them.
Yeah.
Which is incorrect, because there is no fix. There is just a different approach.
Yes. Exactly.
I don't think autism is people are broken. I think autism is just something different.
Yeah.
And we're just not used to that difference. And we have to learn to incorporate that into our daily lives.
For sure.
The other thing is that I'm a true believer that those on the bottom end of the spectrum and those on the higher end of the spectrum, I think there needs to be two distinct names, because they're two different beasts completely.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, like, because they kind of did have that, and then it kind of got eliminated, like, in recent years. And there's a big debate over that, yeah.
Yeah, one of them, they're leaning towards something called profound autism. And so profound autism is the lower end of the spectrum, where the IQ may only reach to 80 or 90.
Okay.
Which means doing something like potty training is going to be slightly more difficult, whereas a high functioner, you don't have to sit there and repeat basic things. Matter of fact, if you do that, they're going to look at you like you think I'm stupid. You're treating me like I'm stupid. I'm stupid. And there's a harm in that. But there is also a harm in setting the bar so high that somebody low on the spectrum may never reach it. Because then they're going to go, no matter what I do, I'm never going to get it. So why should I? And those on the higher end are going to go, I'm intelligent. You refuse to see that I'm intelligent. So no matter what I do, you're not going to see me. And now we've literally screwed over both ends of the spectrum just because we've got it wrong. And I think the cult mentality for the gold standard of ABA is because on the lower end of the spectrum, my son participates in something headbanging. Yeah. And he'll do this against concrete. And without ABA, I feel like he probably has a high chance of brain damage before he even reaches the ability to be an adult. So if somebody took away ABA to me, I would look at them like they're threatening my son's life.
Right.
And that turns into a cult mentality, which means I'm no longer looking at ABA with any kind of scrutiny because they've stopped my kid from hurting himself.
That, makes a lot of sense,
And then those on the higher end of the spectrum are going, well, there's a problem. And those that are more into the lower end of the spectrum are going, yeah, but you don't know what that problem is, so how do you know what you're talking about? And so now it's like we're both speaking two different languages. And now there's just the neurodiversity unit, the actually autistic people, and then the parents, and then the nonverbal autistics just sitting there like, hi, I'm still existing. Can we do
Yeah.
something, please? And we're all fighting each other and not doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what ends up happening, and it's not a productive thing, but I understand why it happens, because like both parties are coming to it from a very personal place, and a very obviously very emotional, and from a place of a lot of frustration on both ends. So I see why it happens, but yeah, obviously it's not helpful in terms of coming up with solutions.
And that's why we are here, because I want a solution. I see my 9-year-old son and I go, he is a predator's favorite victim right now.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And so far, no ABA therapist, no occupational therapist, no speech pathologist, nobody has an answer. And I'm like, okay, where's the answer? I don't know. Where's the answer? I don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of an important thing.
Yeah. And I think ABA has a lot to learn about the practices, but I think if we eliminate it completely, there's a problem there, because in order to use AAC tools, even occupational therapy, in order for a lot lower on the spectrum to even participate, they need the steps to follow to be able to even comprehend the concepts that you are teaching them.
Right.
And that's where ABA plays a role with all of these different therapies. Mm-hmm. I think they're a linchpin, but at the exact same time, we rely on motivational tools to keep them compliant. The problem is that blind compliance and prompt reliance is a problem. And I think it's a byproduct of ABA.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Yeah. It's complex, and it's difficult because there's definitely a need for it in terms of like, especially like safety skills, and when there's like self-harming behaviors or aggressive behaviors towards others, or like when there's like eloping, and like when there's safety concerns. If we were to eliminate it, like what would we use to help with those behaviors that are threatening safety? I think like I think it comes down to what you said about the models being used interchangeably. So like a lot of us autistic people have the misconception that like all ABA would aim to, I guess, eliminate any like autistic behaviors, whether or not they were harmful to the person or to anyone else. Like just completely eliminate stimming, like force eye contact. But that definitely sounds like it's the Denver kind of approach. From
Quiet hands. Quiet hands would probably be something that you automatically go, no.
Yeah.
That's the Denver model.
Yeah.
Now, the Hannon model has incorporated something that I've actually never heard another autistic utter, because I don't think it's gained in popularity yet. It's called a stim diet.
Okay.
So what we've established is stimming is how you process the world around you.
Right.
And neurotypicals do that as well. Mm-hmm. So while an atypical will flap, they'll shriek, they'll headbang because they're like a shaken can of Coke that you just hit to the pavement. A neurotypical will flick their pen, will twirl their hair, will jiggle their leg.
Yeah.
But they will do that because they're realizing they're disrupting other people, and their self-conscious limits make them quiet that, whereas an autistic will not necessarily see it as a problem, and they'll just go hog wild, which is fine. Mm-hmm. Unless, say, it's really hard to put on your shoes when you're flapping.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do a job when you're stimming. It's really hard to learn when you're stimming, because at the moment the brain's going, I need this sensory input. And sometimes it interrupts even your ability to sleep, where your brain's like, where's my arms? Where's my arms? Where's my arms? Flap, rock, flap, rock. And you can't stop.
Yeah.
And quiet hands is not going to fix that. But they incorporate something called a stim diet. So what they say is, all right, this is going to be a little uncomfortable, but how long can you hold that in? It's kind of like a smoker. When you get a job as a smoker, you then have to go, okay, how long can I go without a cigarette? Because I have to work and not smoke. And then you get on break and you're like chugging 5 cigarettes before your break's over.
Yeah.
That's a stim diet. So my son can go 30 minutes before he needs to body rock. So we set a timer and we go, okay, for 30 minutes, we're going to read this book. And then as soon as the timer goes off, spin, flap, shriek, run, do what you got to do to regulate those senses, and then come back. And 30 minutes, we're going to learn stuff again. And then for 10, 15, 20 minutes, do your thing. And they called it a stim diet. So it's not stop stimming, it's when and where. That way, if you need to put on your shoes, if you need to write a letter, if you need to have a phone call, a conversation, if you need to pour coffee, you're not overwhelmed by that urge to start flapping when you need to be focusing on something else. And it gives you that strength and ability to focus your attention on something else other than what your brain is demanding that you do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And it is uncomfortable in the beginning, because in the beginning, my son was 30 seconds and then 2 minutes. And then we stretched it to 5 minutes and then to 7 minutes and then to 10 minutes. And so this is how we did it. We had a group setting with 5 nonverbals, and we would go, okay, we're going to do the morning exercises. And every 10 seconds, my son got a piece of an Oreo cookie, which would keep motivating him to participate in the group activity. And then after 2 minutes, he was given the option, you can go play, or you can stay and finish the activity. If you stay and finish the activity, you get a jackpot. But if you go play, it's okay, but we would prefer you stay. And so it gave him the autonomous choice to choose, do I want to participate or do I want to remove myself? Yeah. And we were able to extend that limit. That way he had skills to go to school, sit at his desk, do his math, do his whatever. And then after he was done what the task was, he could go and relieve all of those overwhelming sensory things. And so we would keep pushing the ticket until there was no more pushing it.
Yeah.
And then we'd have something like a sensory room. So there are autistic specific schools that have what's called the sensory room. And it's literally a big ball pit, a color pit, and a water pit. And it's basically every sense that you need to get out, it's in that room. And I'm like, that is cool.
Yeah.
That is just cool.
Yeah, it does sound cool.
There's this one kid laying in like a cushion of pillows watching a disco ball. And I was like, when I was in school, if that was available, that would be cool.
Yeah, for sure.
And there are all these things that we can do. Like, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something you said, when you were talking about the group session, where he was given a choice, and that autonomous choice is, I think, the key thing in having therapy that is helpful and not harmful, because that, when there's no choice in the matter, that contributes to the blind compliance issue. And when it's like you can go play or you can stay and do this, and like if you stay and do this, there might be an incentive, but there's no like punishment if you go and do something else. Like that's, I think, the way to go. Whereas like I hear of a lot of people's experiences being like, if you don't do this, you get punished or you get something taken away from you, which isn't helpful. Oh, it says we have like 10
minutes.
Yeah. I just noticed that.
And then I'll make a whole new Zoom link and we can continue. But I agree that forcing compliance is a problem.
Yeah.
But giving that autonomous choice, like with the Hannon model, we use what's called first and then. So first, let's do what I want you to do. And then there's choices of like 10 of their favorite things. And they go, what do you want to work for? So my son, it's the Turbo movie. So I say, do you want the tablet? Do you want Turbo? Do you want to go outside? Do you want to swim? Do you want a cookie? First, we're going to do this task. But as soon as this task is done, whatever you want to do is next. And that's what's coming next. And we're going to make you aware that your favorite thing is coming next. So pick your favorite thing and we'll do that. So that way it's a compromise. It's you do what I want and then I will do what you want. And then they still get practice going, what do I want? I want this. I'm going to choose this. Because the stress is when something is taken away, you get these thoughts. When am I getting that next? When is it coming back? When is it going to be offered again? I don't know. Meltdown.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say, okay, first we're going to make a pizza and then Turbo. And it's going to take us 3 minutes to put together a pizza. I'll cook it while you're watching Turbo. Let's do this. If you can explain that part, and if you can go, okay, is this a good compromise to you? And they nod and say yes, then okay, let's proceed. That's Hannon model.
Yeah.
Denver model is do this, do this, do this, do this, because I said so. Don't argue with me. Do it. And quiet hands, by the way. Do this. Do this. Whereas the Hannon model is more expressive.
Yeah, there's a huge difference there that needs to be emphasized more, I think.
I agree, because you can use both models in tandem. However, you have to be very careful. So, for example, there are parts of the Denver model that can be used in tandem with Hannon as long as you shave off the look at me, right in the eyes, right here. Because what parents don't know is the face is the most visual input your eyes and your brain will ever get, no matter what you look at.
Yeah.
And so to look at you in the eyes can sometimes trigger overstimulation immediately. And if you aren't aware of that, then you're going, why aren't you listening to me? And the poor autistic is like, because I can't.
Yeah.
Because when you demand this, I physically can't.
Right.
And then the parent gets mad and the child gets mad and then an explosion happens.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Hannon model, we go, okay, so my son right now, we're teaching him to make his food because he needs to know how to do that when I'm gone.
Yeah.
His favorite food is pizza. So I roll out the dough and then I get the cheese and the pepperoni and the sauce. And I say, okay, spread the sauce, put the cheese on. And if he's able to continue, then I'll say, put the pepperoni on. If he's fighting me, then I'll say, put 2 pepperonis on. And after you put 2, Turbo.
Yeah.
But at least then we haven't ended the session on your meltdown. We've ended the session with you complying. Now that does lead to blind compliance, but at the same time, it tells the child that they don't get to control the situation with the meltdown. Because if you control a situation with a meltdown, in my younger years of working with autism, because I didn't know what I was doing. When my son would start bashing his head into the floor, I was so scared I would give him an Oreo cookie to make him stop. Because I'm like, oh my God, my son's hurting himself. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Cookie.
Yeah.
And the therapist is like, you realize what you just did, right? I'm like, what? They're like, you just rewarded that behavior, which means he's going to do it again. And you don't want him to do it again because he's now hurting himself more.
Yeah.
And you didn't mean to do that, but we need to extinguish this behavior.
Right.
And they use the term extinguish specifically because that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it sounds scary. We're extinguishing a behavior. But when it's headbanging, I'm like, yes, do that.
Depends what it is, yeah. If it's harmful, like truly harmful, then it needs to happen.
Oh yeah, there's no other way. It's like,
Yeah,
what do you want? Blind compliance or brain damage? And I'm like,
yeah,
I'll take blind compliance, thank you.
yeah.
But now that he's 9, I'm going, what do I do?
Right. Right. It's
My
tricky.
my son has blind compliance. A stranger could walk up to him and say, "Take off your shorts,"
Yeah.
and he'll do it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Crap. What do I do now? And then I have all these people going, abuse. You abused your child. ABA is abuse. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. No. That didn't happen. I just felt like this is emotional blackmail.
Yeah. Yeah. The shouting of abuse is definitely a problem. It's not like coming at parents, and even if like some people truly believe that ABA is abuse, coming at the parents when that is what like they're told to do by medical professionals, that's what they're told will help their child. It's not the parents' fault. Like, and just yelling at them that they're abusing their child isn't going to help anything. So yeah, I really don't understand when that happens.
When a parent hears abuse, they
Mhm.
shut down because they go, oh God, what if you're right?
Yeah.
Have I abused my child?
Hmm.
What do I do? And then they just stop and they freeze, and suddenly they don't trust anybody. And the problem is that the brain is expanding, and we only have so much time to help incorporate skills before it's too late.
Yeah.
Once the brain is done growing, it's no longer a sponge.
Hmm.
So now what do we do?
Yeah.
And I'm all about, okay, let's work together for some solutions.
Right.
That's actually what this group home is for, because I've watched group homes put nonverbals in a room where they're happy. They have their tablet, they have their food, they have their clothes, but that's all they have.
Yeah.
They don't have friends. They don't have autonomy. They're alive, but that's it. And once the parents are gone, they die.
Yeah.
By the age of 40 sometimes. And I'm like, no. We got to fix that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's alarming, and it's also alarming that there's nothing on a large scale being done about it. And so many people are unaware too.
Oh yeah. Like when I say, did you know that the lifespan of a nonverbal autistic is to 40? People go, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. We've known this data for a while. What are we doing about it?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's 40? Really? What?
Yeah.
Why? Because those that could understand what they couldn't say are gone.
Mm.
How do we expand that? AAC. Okay, how do we teach them to utilize AAC? Question mark.
Mm-hmm.
I would say start out young. Use AAC right away.
Yeah.
But you got to build those skills over time. Like my son has Proloco to go, but he only understands I want. There's no I feel. There's no I like. There's only I want. I want this. I want this. I'll go, Jack, what's your favorite color? And he gives me this look like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Jack, what's your favorite music? What?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know you understand concepts, but how you feel and what your favorite things are, you don't understand that concept. Well, now how do I teach you what that concept even is?
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's just the shortcomings of what we understand in, the 21st century, and we just need to figure out how to articulate better concepts.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, so far both of us can identify kind of the shortcomings of the problem.
Yeah.
neither one of us can seem to identify, okay, how do we move forward, which it's my mission to literally talk to everybody I can find so that maybe all of these perspectives can lead us to a solution.
Yeah.
Maybe we're on the edge of a problem and we're going to figure out something new.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm hoping that's where we are.
Me too. Yeah, because we need a solution.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, I know that neurotypicals have shortfalls. So when I talk to neurotypical parents, they say, well, your son has a mind of a 3-year-old, right? Well, then just teach him like a 3-year-old. And I'm like, well, you're assuming that he's a 3-year-old neurotypical inside a 9-year-old when he's a 3-year-old atypical.
Huh?
And you have to factor in those repeat and generalize. Because if my son, for example, learns stop, come here with his dad, he doesn't know to do that with me because he hasn't generalized it beyond I do this with dad. And so how do we break it down to the steps where we can repeat and generalize? It's not just about how do we give a toddler their own inner voice. How do we give an autistic toddler that inner voice? And I'm wondering if it's dads. I wonder if we need more dads.
What do you mean?
Well, moms, especially when a mom has a baby, they're very agreeable with the baby. For the first couple of years, that baby does no wrong. It can do whatever it wants, and the mom just accepts it and nurtures.
Yeah.
And the dad pushes the limits and says, no, do it this way. No, do this way. No, come back from the line, go this way. Whereas the mom just goes, I love you just the way you are, and you can be everything you want. And dad goes, all right, son, you are no taller than 6 feet, so being a professional basketball player, probably not in the cards for you.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if we need more testosterone to this problem, because we're looking at this going, okay, how do we nurture but at the same time equip them with the defenses so that when a predator comes along, they can say go to hell. Dads do that. Dads set up their kids with their sword and their shield and their defenses, and they teach them how to kick ass.
Yeah.
They teach their daughters what to expect in their boyfriends, and they teach their sons how to protect women. They teach their sons how to go out and get what they want and kick ass.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which is what I think we're trying to do, which is, okay, we can nurture autism, but at the same time, we want to equip you to not be somebody's victim, but to be the next contender on The Price is Right. We want you to go do the thing. Yeah. And I'm curious if we just need more dads to come in and say, okay, how would you deal with this?
I guess you see more, like in parenting discussions about autism, you see more moms for sure. So it would be interesting to kind of get a dad's perspective.
I think dads go, okay, mom's got this. I'm just going to give the money and the food and the resources, and I'm just going to stand back here and let mom deal with this. Because she seems to got it all figured out. And we're standing here going, well, no, we have half of it figured out.
Yeah.
we don't have it all figured out. Get over here. Do something.
Yeah.
Do the thing. Whereas dads are like, whoa, we don't want to screw this up. We're going to let mom do all the love things. And it's like, okay, we've done the love thing. You do the go out into the world and kick ass.
Yeah.
And so far, my son's like, well, I don't want to go out into the world. I want to sit on this couch and watch YouTube. And I'm like, son, there's more to life than that screen.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, if I knew what this screen was going to be back when you were younger, I wouldn't have ever bought it for you.
I think that's a lot of kids, whether they're autistic or not. But like with autistic kids, there's a tendency of like escapism even more through technology like that. because it feels kind of safe and predictable.
Correct.
Yeah, I get that.
And so that's why my son hates animals. He doesn't hate animals because they're animals. He hates animals because they're unpredictable. He's like, dude, I love Dogtail Helicopter because that tail is just so visually addicting. But the dog's face, get it away from me. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. And the tablet, I've realized it for him, it's both auditory and visual sensations that his brain goes, I want more of this.
Mm.
And he's like, okay. And then just sits there and feeds it and then forgets to feed himself. And then I have to go, son, by the way, chew and swallow, please.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, yeah.
And please don't sit there and pee in your pants. Go to the toilet. You can push pause and come back to it 5 seconds later.
Yeah.
And my son's like, I don't want it. Why? I can just sit here and pee and you will fix it.
Yeah. I like, not to the same extent, but I definitely get that kind of being stuck on one thing and like neglecting your like things that you need to do, your basic needs. Like, yeah, it's tempting sometimes.
It is. And neurotypicals do it all the time. How many times does a neurotypical go, I really got to do the dishes, but you know what I really want to do more? Play this video game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just keep playing this video game, and then it's bedtime, and you're like, crap, I didn't do the dishes. Ah, darn it. And you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
An autistic will do that, but to such a greater extent that somebody has to step in and go, no.
Yeah.
Go do the thing.
Yep.
And there we have prompt reliance. I've now given you a prompt, and you're going to go do it. Now you're literally relying on that before you choose to do the thing.
Yeah.
How do I fix that one? I don't know. Because without the prompts, they don't choose autonomously to do the thing.
Yeah.
Now, I know that at some point with the ABA, we thought if we give them the prompts and give them the answers, then at some point they'll choose to use those answers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
What we have found, that's not the case. The case is they won't autonomously go, oh, this is the answer. I now have the answer. I'm going to choose to use this answer. Instead, they just rely on us to tell them the answer. And they wait until that answer is presented before they do it because they can.
Mm.
And I suppose a neurotypical in that situation would. But we don't give them that leeway because we're like, dude, you can do this yourself. Come on now. Whereas an atypical, we're so expecting that they can't do it themselves that we don't try.
That's an issue too, for sure.
Because, for example, I know my son knows how to go pee himself.
Yeah.
He knows how to go pee himself.
Mm-hmm.
But every 2 hours, I'm still going, hey, you got a potty? Go do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mom, will you stop that? But I don't, because I at the end of the day, if he chooses not to do it, I got to deal with it. And I'm like, I don't want to. It's so much easier for me to just say, son, go use the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I got to stop doing that.
Yeah, it's hard.
Because it's so much easier for me to put his shoes on for him than to stand there for 30 minutes and go, son, put on your shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that prompt reliance, I think, is a kid's natural ability to manipulate their parents, and the parents going, I feel sorry that you're slightly disadvantaged, so I'm going to just allow this. Whereas if a dad walked in, he'd go, dude, put on your shoes. And would stand there with his arms folded going, come on, 10, 9, 8, 7, put on your shoes, put on your shoes. Dude, if you don't get those shoes on, that tablet is going on top of the fridge. Come on, shoes. Whereas moms are like, well, he doesn't completely understand. It's not his fault. I'll just help him. Might as well just... I don't wonder if parents need ABA coaching to go, okay, stop that.
Maybe.
That's the difference between me and Jack's dad.
Yeah.
Jack's dad will go, hey, put on your shoes. Okay, come on, use your finger to hold the back of the shoe while you get your shoes on, please, because I'm not buying you a new pair. Whereas me, I will actually get on the floor and help him. And his dad will stand there with his arms folded and go, come on, I know you know how to do this. And Jack will argue with him. And he'll just stand there going, dude, I don't care how much you whine at me. Put on your shoes. And me, I will squish at that every freaking time. Every time. He goes, eh. I'm like, oh, okay, here, I'll help you.
But when his dad like insists, does he eventually?
Yeah,
he does.
He does. It works. It takes a good 15 minutes.
Yeah,
but
so it's like
works.
That. Yeah.
And I stand there and look at him, even though he's my ex, I look at him in astonishment, and I even look at him with a bit of envious jealousy for his patience. Yeah. And I'm like, I wish I could do that. Help me do that.
It's, I guess it does. It's a patience thing, and it's hard in everyday life to, take that time, and if you have places to be, but yeah, it seems like.
Well, not only that, but I'm always afraid if I push him, meltdown. And then that meltdown is my fault. He had to feel that way and he hurt himself, and it's my fault because I pushed him too far. So I don't even push. Whereas dad is like, no. If I don't push him to do anything, he's going to do nothing. So I'm going to take the risk of the meltdown to teach him to put on his darn shoes. And I'm like, I wish I could tuck away that fear and do that. If I could do that, I would be unstoppable.
Yeah.
And I can't. I physically cannot make myself do it, because in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm abusing my son. And then I see that it's not abusing my son, and that I'm not being a cruel mom, and at the exact same time, I can't cross that threshold. And I'm wondering how many other parents are stumped by that problem. Yeah,
I would bet a lot.
And it's not that I don't think he's capable. It's not that I think he's stupid.
No.
I'm afraid of the consequences if I'm wrong.
Right.
Because it's only going to take one good crack in that pavement for him to have brain damage. And if I don't think I could ever face that.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously very valid fear. It's hard to balance that with. It's hard to balance that fear with like pushing a little bit. Yeah.
I wonder if we need to create a culture going, okay. You guys harden up a little instead of being so soft. And so, I love you so much, I'm going to do things for you. Harden up a little. Stand over there for a minute and let the kid put on his shoes. Because I think people think it's a power versus not power, or it's a I can do things over you, or it's even a I don't think you're smart enough. And I'm like, no, I know he's capable. I'm just worried that what if he's having sensory issues right now and I push it?
Yeah.
How do we know? Because there are some times where he has meltdowns and I have no darn idea why he had one.
Yeah.
And then an autistic will talk to me and they'll go, well, what about a certain smell? What about a sound? What about the stim diet? What about maybe he was too hot? Maybe he was too cold? Maybe he had a proprioceptive issue, a vestibular issue.
Yeah.
A touch issue. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, too. A lot of people think we have 5 senses. We actually have more like 7 or 8 main senses.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. If all your senses are heightened all at once, no wonder.
And which one of them are activated? Which one of them are overactivated? Which one of them are underactivated? And because that can change on a day-to-day basis, it's almost like the problem that we're having with just too many darn variables, where we're just like, we have no idea. With a neurotypical, we have all of these hints, but with an atypical, it's like we have just we don't even have a map.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to bridge that problem.
Yeah.
Which is why I always say every atypical that I talk to is a window into my son.
Yeah, for sure.
There are so many different sides on this kaleidoscope to look like that.
Yeah.
I am not quite sure which avenue we should travel down. If we should focus on the parents and what they know, focus on ABA, or expanding the knowledge of what we know so that we can actually pinpoint the problem.
Maybe it's all of the above. And yeah, I think getting as many perspectives as we can from people with different experiences and different approaches. Because obviously it's not a one size fits all.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
You too. Thank you.
And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat with you about it, because
yeah,
I think we have a lot to learn between atypical and neurotypical, where it's not necessarily about being neurotypical or atypical or normal. It's about finding a roadmap of commonalities that we can use to expand the endless possibilities of what we can do.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
It's been a pleasure too. Thank you so much for having me.